towards the end of the rule and reg set, all the teams converge, and then for like 24, 16 months, we get like the best racing that we've ever seen. So surely the simplest thing then, Shez, is to elongate, like give us another 100%. 2 years of these rules and regs, no?
I tried to defend these regs as much as possible, and I applauded F1 for doing it, for trying something different, but they've just been a colossal failure. Carlos Sainz, if you signed for Williams, you are an idiot, given these new regs coming out.
Well, go on then. Let's talk about it, Baxter, because I'll see you that and I'll raise you this. Where else is he going to go?
You're a factory driver going to a customer team. You got a chance of a factory drive. Yes, it's new, but go to the factory drive. I don't understand why he wouldn't go to Audi. It just doesn't make any sense.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my brothers, my friends, the one and only Sir Baxter and the one they call Shazino. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you're doing because we've got lots of F1-ish to talk about in 30 minutes or less. Shaz, I'm going to come to you first, super quickly, sir. Summarise how you react to these new technical regulations or these technical specifications as far as the 2026 car, sir.
In general, positively. The stuff that they're talking about is smaller cars, lighter cars. The active aerodynamics on the front and rear wings sound interesting, and the whole aim of the regulations is to try and get the cars to follow a bit better than they are right now. And just like the 2022 rules, they've been well researched with input from a technical team at the FIA, and then and then input from the Formula One teams who have been providing sim work and feedback on the stuff that's been coming out. I guess the main differences are that where there's been a massive and heavy reliance on ground effects in the 2022 rules, that was meant to be the way that the new cars were able to follow each other more closely. That's been replaced a little bit with a slightly weaker ground effect rule, which means that the cars don't have to be as low and stiffly sprung as they are right now, so you won't get the bouncing and the bad backs that the drivers have been complaining about, but a switch to active aerodynamics, so low drag on the straights, high drag in the corners, which might help to allow the cars to follow a bit better in the corners and maintain that following in the straights, end of straight, and allow overtaking, which ultimately means that we won't have DRS for the first time since 2011. Wow.
Baxley, talk to me, sir. You buying what the FIA is selling in all of this better overtaking, more agile car, more racing, etc., etc.? This feels like deja vu, true or false?
Yeah, that does feel like deja vu because we were supposed to get that in 2022, and we did in 2022, and then afterwards it seemed to go backwards. I would say I'm going to wait until I actually see cars on track in 2026 before I make my full judgment on it. I mean, I'm pleased that DRS is gone. I think it's become too much of it's become, the drivers have relied on it too much. Active aero could be interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works. I know there's a few concerns about it. The big thing for me in all of this is that ground effect is, these ground effect rules that were supposed to be generational and lasted 4 years. They've lasted 4 years and they're already being phased out with, by switching to a lesser ground effect. And it just, for me, puts the nail in the coffin that these regs have been absolutely awful. I tried to defend these regs as much as possible. And I applauded F1 for doing it, for trying something different, but they've just been a colossal failure. And, for me, 2022 showed signs of not greatness, but showed that it could work. 2023 killed them stone dead. When you have a team dominate like that.
Let's go, Sir Baxter. I don't hate that, bruv. You want me to be a bit controversial, chaps? I really want to care about these new rules and regs, and I suppose I will do when 2026 kicks in properly and we're impacted by virtue of the fact that they've either worked or not worked again. But as they were doing their presentation, I just had so much things to critique. I was like, engagement FIA. Like I've seen I feel like my 3-year-old son could give a better, more engaging PowerPoint presentation. I was listening to it. I was like, snooze fest out here. Like, what are we? Isn't this meant to be about exciting racing? Ergo, make the bloody presentation exciting. I was just like, listen, I can't. I wasn't invested, chaps. I was just like, this is long. I don't really care. And again, to Baxley's point, I feel like I've heard this all before as far as the broken promises. It's remiss of me at this point to just call Toto the boy who cried wolf. FIA need to get put into that same pot as well, right? Are they not unreliable narrators at this point? I remember in 2021, Ross Brawn was giving it the big one, saying this is going to be the panacea. We're now finally going to get some racing cars we'll be able to follow. The new rear wing's going to work perfectly and outwash is going to be brilliant. And now look, it kind of has worked a little bit, but ultimately we still have one dominant team. So how can it have worked as much as they pitch us on, Baxter?
I mean, obviously, whenever you get new regs, one team is always going to ace it better than everybody else. We've seen that with Red Bull and Mercedes and Brawn and and the like. And I think how much of these aero rules are going to be trumped by the engine regs? We don't know. I mean, 2026 has always been seen as an engine formula rather than an aero formula. If this is a nice balance between the two, then we could get some competitive action out the gate. But if Mercedes and Audi and whoever turn up with some absolute monster of an engine and it turns out the engine is the all important, then you're going to have 2014 to 2016 all over again, pretty much. You just got to hope more than one team nails it.
They won't. They won't.
Oh, the humanity. Shez, let me pitch this question to you, bruv, this way. Surely the pattern that's been the dominant theme as far as the competitive landscape is that towards the end of the rule and reg set, all the teams converge. And then for like 24, 16 months, we get like the best racing that we've ever seen. So surely the simplest thing then, Shez, is to elongate, like give us another
100%.
2 years of these rules and regs, no?
100%. 100% agree with you. And I don't think I completely agree that these rules have failed. They came into 2022 saying that they were going to cut the downforce lost by the following car by 50%. Right. And they said that they'd done that in 22 and then that's been chipped away. We're still at a level now, even with that chipped away level, that we're still able to follow better than we were in 2021. The drivers are saying, things are a bit more difficult, but they're still better than they were in 2021. So from that point of view, the ground effect revolution, whatever you want to call it, has done what it was meant to do. What it didn't do was close up the field as they expected it to do. But that was asking, I think, for too much, to expect that you were going to get every team was suddenly going to understand how to do this. One team did. They have stolen a march and they've dominated. That's how every rule set has ever worked. And then 2 or 3 seasons down the line, what you're seeing now is when the teams start to converge, that the ceiling, the law of diminishing return starts to kick in. Red Bull don't have the same ceiling that they did in 22. And now you're starting to see McLaren and Ferrari close in to the point where we're even talking that there might be a drivers and a constructors championship fight this year. So to change the rules completely for 2026 is, I think, giving some teams a massive let off. And I agree with you, Cameron. Like getting to the end of a rule set is the peach. That's what you're aiming for. It's not the beginning; it's the end.
And sorry to cut you off, Shez, but the convergence is already happening. Like look how long it took in the last set. It took 3-4 years. Yeah, and took a major overhaul of the regs just to get there, to give Ferrari essentially. Ferrari were the ones who took advantage. They were the ones to catch up, and took Red Bull 8 years to catch up. Whereas the convergence is happening now, but the reason why I think they have failed is, yes, that you're allowed to follow closely, but it's just not been the product. Now I think that's partly hangover from 21 because 21 was so good, it was such an all timer, and then when we haven't had a fight since, and I'm not even talking about the way 21 ended. I'm just talking in the whole, we haven't had a real fight since, other than the first few races of 2022. it just kind of make it the product has been dry. It's been so dry. In the first 3 years of the last regs, Nico Rosberg existed and made it interesting. If Nico Rosberg wasn't there, and you just had Lewis driving around doing victory lap after victory lap for 3 years, then then we would be having very similar conversation. But
But
this
that's
one,
not a
not so.
ground effects problem though. That's the teams not understanding the remit and understanding what they
I
needed to
understand that.
do.
I
I
understand
mean,
that. But
the first season of ground effects, you had to pass into Pouillon of all places. Like you're not supposed to be able to pass into that corner at
mm,
Spa. You know what I mean? So, like, yes, get it. The competitive order has been a problem. I would argue that's been a problem for every rule set change that's ever happened. It happened in 1998. It happened in 2009. It happened again in 2014. Every single time there's a rule set change,
So,
one team will get it right, and everybody else will have to
so,
play catch up.
so true, Shez. So herein lies the problem with that then. Am I watching a PowerPoint presentation from the FIA, the regulatory body of the premier motorsport formula in the world? Or am I watching bloody a prime ministerial debate between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer? How many lies and false prophecies do you want to feed us, right? That's the issue, Shez. And we've seen it because we've been watching F1 all our life, but the drive to survivors have come in and are trying to pick apart these rules and regs. They said in 2021 we were going to get more racing, and nothing of the sort has transpired. And that, I think, is an issue, Shez. Fool me once and all that.
Yeah, but Cameron, but we understand why these changes are coming in, right? They're coming in like
we understand why.
but part of our remit is to explain that as well, right? Part of our remit is to tell it how we see it. And Baxty's right. A lot of this is to do with the engine regulations. The aero is being altered and fixed to fit an engine regulation that has been purpose built to entice the VW group, right? We've got this engine regulation because they wanted Audi in. So now they've got Audi, so they've had to change the aero suite to suit. And fine, you've got Audi in 2026, but it means that we don't get the elongation of a rule set that is now starting to bear fruit.
And which of those shares is the first order priority? Is it racing then, or is it getting Audi in? And this is where it gets, the waters just get, that's what I'm saying, Shez. So the waters again just get murky, and each and every single time with FIA and the commercial rights holder, it's all about green, right? Only one colour ever matters in life.
What I would say is, as a Mercedes fan, I am very secretly grinning because if this is being an engine reg, and we know how well they did in a previous engine reg, but also I think Audi will be grinning as well because this does seem to have been to try and boost them up the grid. I mean, considering that Sauber are dead last at the minute and absolutely awful in this year of 2024. Though what I would also say is, Carlos Sainz, if you sign for Williams, you are an idiot, given these new regs coming out.
Well, go on then. Let's talk about it, Baxter, because I'll see you that and I'll raise you this. Where else is he going to go if indeed he wants to remain as an F1 driver? It's like Enter the Dragon, right? Bruce Lee, all of a sudden, all of the doors have closed, and this is what he's left with by elimination. No, go to Audi, do you think, over Williams, Baxter?
Oh, yeah, go to Audi. Yeah, absolutely. He wants to be a world... Well, we've just said that these rules seem to have been made potentially to keep Audi in the project. Because, I mean, how many times in the last 2 years have we heard Audi might pull out of F1 project? We've got the smaller cars and everything else, and that's great. We need smaller cars, which is good. But he's got Audi or Williams. Those are his two options because he wanted the Red Bull drive. The Red Bull drive was never going to materialize because they were always going to stick with Checo when Lando said no. And I think, as time went on and Daniel Ricciardo didn't deliver, that's the other key element there. But he's got the option of Williams or Audi. Now, Audi, I think, would be a great fit for him. He's got the family tie there with his dad driving for Audi for years. It's a chance to go to a factory team. Yes, an unproven factory team, but what an opportunity to go to a brand new factory team, somebody with the heritage in motorsport that Audi has, to be their front guy alongside Nico Hülkenberg, who we know is no slouch. And he can go there and be the number one driver and spearhead that effort going forward. or to go to Williams, who are still on the catch up and making their cars with Excel spreadsheets.
Oof.
Yeah, James Vowles, great team principal. Albon, good teammate. And that will be an interesting battle to watch, and it will be an upgrade for Williams from where they currently are in their second seat. But you're a factory driver going to a customer team. You got a chance of another factory drive. Yes, it's new, but go to the factory drive. I don't understand why he wouldn't go to Audi. It just doesn't make any sense.
Shez, Carlos Sainz at Williams. What? Square this circle for me, chap. These are words that I never thought I would say ever in life 24 months ago.
I mean, it makes more sense to me. Sure, the engine rules might have been designed to entice Audi in, but there's no guarantee that they're going to get it right. Williams will have a Mercedes engine in 2026, which by all accounts has got pretty big numbers on the dyno. Sure, we've heard big numbers in sim before from Mercedes, but I think you'd rather be in a Mercedes powered car than you would in an unproven Audi car. I think the only team that I've ever seen turn up and bang, they've had a great engine is BMW back in 2000. And they were hobbled by a Williams chassis, ironically, weren't they? And I think that all the stuff about building, designing your car on an Excel spreadsheet, I think all of that should have been ironed out by the time 2026 starts. That's where the major investment at Williams is going.
I was being facetious.
I know you were. All of the investment is going into infrastructure. So by 2026, with a brand new rule set, you'd expect that side of things would have been ironed out, or at least partially ironed out. And the budget cap convergence will mean that Williams will be closer to being competitive than they are right now, versus a completely unproven Audi team that's based on a Sauber team that are still with the best will in the world doing 3.5-second pit stops. I know where I put my money in the first couple of seasons of that. If things change, Hulkenberg's not going to be around forever, and you'd expect that Audi would still want somebody like Carlos Sainz like a year or two down the line. So as long as Carlos doesn't commit himself to a 10-year contract with Williams, I still think that option's open when Audi have proven themselves competitive.
Oh, Chezinho, I don't know. It feels like something's wrong in a world where you've got Carlos Sainz Jr. fresh after bloody appendix surgery, coming back and nailing himself 25 points at Australia. And then all of a sudden he looks around, Checo Perez gets a 2-year contract extension, and he's left with empty hands. Oh, the humanity, chaps.
I mean, that's what we should be talking about, though, isn't it?
F1 is a weird and wacky world. Go on then, talk to me about that very quickly, Shez. What do you make of this 2-year contract? Let me word the question this way. How and why has Checo Perez, on the back of at Monaco not being able to even get out of Q1, and then in the previous Grand Prix not even being able to get out of Q2, and nearly taking out his teammate at turn 1 in Miami, on the back of those 3 instances, why now has Checo Perez, the Mexican Minister of Defense, how now has he gotten himself a 2-year contract extension, Shez?
I can only see 2 reasons. One is commercial, because he has a massive following in Mexico, and he helps them sell a bunch of stuff there. And the second is that it keeps Max happy. And if you're trying to ward off your lead driver heading off somewhere, make his life as easy as possible. Don't bring in someone like Carlos Sainz. And if you can't get Lando, who's Max's best mate, who would be an upgrade, I think, on Checo Perez, the next best thing is just keep the current driver in there. And as Maxie said, there isn't anybody else in the junior team that's making a super strong case for ousting Sergio right now. All of the pressure is coming from outside the organization. I think those are the only 2 reasons, because it's not a performance thing. And actually, it could backfire spectacularly if in 2025, 2026, Max says, all right, I'm out. Then what are you left with? Checo Perez is your lead driver. I don't think so.
Baxty, to that, sir, you react how?
I agree with a lot of what Shez has said there. I think the commercial reason is huge. He is very popular. I mean, the guy's got a Disney Plus documentary coming out about him. I won't try. I mean, I'm learning Spanish at the minute, but I won't try and pronounce it in Spanish. And apparently, it's quite rude as well. So, yeah, so he's definitely got market value to him in terms of appeal, and Red Bull have been the beneficiaries of that and seen massive upsurge in their sales in not just Mexico but other Latin American countries. I hate to be the cynic, but I have a feeling that this might be speaking a lot to the internal struggle at Red Bull right now. I have a feeling that Checo was very loyal to Christian Horner, and that may have been a reason for him being extended. Because I think if it was up to Helmut Marko, I think Helmut Marko would have shown him the door and put somebody in the car. I mean, and also drivers have said no. Lando said no. They said no to Fernando, which I think with the reasons they gave for that made sense. Lewis wasn't particularly interested, I don't think, depending on who you believe in that scenario. They passed on Carlos. They're not interested in Yuki Tsunoda, which I think is a real shame, because I think Yuki's more than earned a shot at the Red Bull seat this year by beating people that everyone said was going to kick his ass. Daniel Ricciardo has failed to materialize. You've got two juniors waiting in Lawson and Hadjar who could be down the line stars for you. But yeah, this just made no sense to me. And they gave it the big one as well. Like, we've got a big announcement at 5 o'clock. And we all just sat there and went, well, let's check out a contract extension, and it's really boring.
Yeah, well, did you see the emoji reactions that they went and deleted? They had like thousands of people doing I want to say like 3,000 angry face emojis at the actual announcement. And then I want to say they had 2,600 dead face emojis. People, you can't write this, chaps. No. I know that F1 is a shark's tank, and a meritocracy is like, do you know what I mean? Where the line, where the meritocracy line meets politics is increasingly murky, right? But this beggars belief. I can't understand. In a week that Esteban Ocon has been sacked off, bloody Carlos Sainz doesn't have a drive. Like, what are we doing here? This is chaos.
What I would say is this: is if Red Bull lose the Constructors' Championship this year, they are going to regret this decision massively. Yeah, there are people out there trying to wind everyone up, saying that Perez is better than Bottas. Get real. Get real. You stick Bottas in that second Red Bull, he wouldn't beat Max, but I tell you what, you would win the Constructors every single year. If with a dominant car. Yeah, whereas Perez is putting you under pressure. The reason you didn't win the Constructors' Championship in 2021 was because of Perez and his underperformance.
Well, you say that, Maxty, but then still in my heart is the fact that Lewis, if you're going to attribute blame as to why Lewis Hamilton isn't an 8-time champion, in that cake somewhere needs to go Valtteri Bottas's no-show in critical times. Mention no names, Abu Dhabi 2021, but I digress, chaps. Listen, I wanted to pick each of your brain on this because the Canadian Grand Prix this race weekend feels like it might be a tipping point of sorts as far as the convergence story. Max Verstappen, to anyone who will listen, has said that the fundamental problems as far as the RB20 is that it cannot curb. So stiff is the lateral aspect of his suspension, courtesy of the anti-dive and anti-squat, that he was avoiding the curbs almost completely in Monaco. Anybody that's ever driven around Canada, the Gilles Villeneuve circuit, will tell you, particularly Damon Hill, by the way, on the F1 Nation podcast, will tell you that there is lap time to be gained from curbing. Damon says that back in 96 he gained anywhere up to 3/10 by hooking the car on the bloody curbs and straight lining them. Baxty, what do you think we're going to see this race weekend? Is it going to be mean reversion, another Maximilian domination, or genuinely we're going to see the likes of McLaren and Ferrari mounting a challenge?
A lot's going to depend on the weather, because apparently it's forecast to be wet. And wet Canadian Grand Prix are very, very entertaining normally. I've been reminded of 2011 throughout this week and that incredible Grand Prix that happened. I think in the dry, I do think McLaren and Ferrari will be a challenge for Red Bull. There's a lot of talk about Ferrari being the ones this weekend, but you throw some wet weather in there, that could help McLaren. I also think it could help Mercedes. Mercedes do run better in the wet, though I think straight line speed might be their issue. But yeah, I don't think Max is going to have it all his own way this weekend. I think he's going to be put under some pressure. I think Ferrari are really starting to flex their muscles now. Leclerc seems, I think now that Leclerc's got his first win in over a year, he might just start to really begin to get himself into this season. And I would love for him to reel off some wins and put some pressure on Max. That would be great. And the big thing for Max right now is, can he trust his teammate to back him up? Because, Checo, not so great at the moment.
It's going to be.
We've had the Checo dip. He has a great start, and now we're in the dip. And I was hoping that dip wouldn't happen this year, but it seems to be happening right now. Of course, this is where he goes and sticks it on pole and wins the race. But
Who? Checo Perez? Behave yourself,
not gonna
Baxty. Behave yourself. Better chances of Santa Claus delivering your Christmas presents down the chimney, mate. Checo Perez for what? I don't know what's going on. And this isn't me. I don't want to come down on Checo Perez. This isn't me undermining his previous exploits. By no means. He was incredible. He was everything in 2021 that Valtteri Bottas was not. But I mean, give me that RB20 and I must be able to escape a Q1 surely, or at the very least not get out qualified by Logan Sargent 4 times out of 28. That's I don't know. Shez, talk to me about this race weekend. Do we get a competitive Grand Prix in Canada? True or false?
Maybe. It's a balance again, isn't it? Between how hobbled Red Bull are by the curbs at the Circuit de Villeneuve, versus how much development time they've managed to put in the intervening period between Monaco and now. They've had a bit of breathing space. Max has said all the stuff that you've just said, but he's also been sat in sim for the last 2 weeks. So whether or not they have at least partially started to stabilize that problem, will go some way to telling us how well they go in dry running. But Mercedes is coming with a big upgrade, so don't know how that's going to work out. Maybe it's going to be everything.
Pull the other one. There's not enough time left in the podcast to broach that subject, mate.
Maybe everything. Well, I mean, who knows, man? But maybe everything will be answered by this one upgrade. But certainly Ferrari and McLaren are strong where the Red Bull is weak. And they're starting to make it show. So yeah, if it's dry, as you say, I think Ferrari with their power unit are probably best placed to make that pay. But I still have a feeling that Red Bull will have had a bit more time to come up with a solution to this curve problem.
But Shez, Verstappen says there's no salute, that this is a fundamental flaw not solvable by setup tweaks, that the way that Adrian knew is the beauty to that car is that it can ride so low and is so adaptable irrespective of the circumstance, all except for curbing because of the lateral stiffness of the suspension.
But Max would have been higher up the grid in Monaco if he hadn't made a mistake in his final lap, and the same in Imola, right? In a track where he had to attack the curves, especially up into Variante Alta. He was almost on pole, so it's not as if they can't get the car into a setup window where it can work. Sorry, he was on pole.
I was going to say, yeah, he was on pole.
He was on pole. So it's not as if they can't get the car into a setup window where it's able to do the business. It's just how much they've been able to iron out the fundamental flaw in that car over the course of the last 2 weeks. And they've had a bit of time to actually do that. That will give us an idea of, number one, how Montreal works out, but also how the rest of the season is going to pan out in terms of places like Azerbaijan and Hungary.
Singapore, throw that in there as
Singapore,
well.
Yeah.
Very techie, chaps. Let me ask you finally. Interesting that you say, I pitched this to Windsor earlier on in the week, that in rain you'd expect Maximilian Verstappen to go well, right? Expand the quantum between him and the rest. And Windsor countered and was like, no, if you've got the quickest car, usually rain is the great equaliser, right? And it'll make Ferrari and McLaren get even closer to Red Bull. With that, chaps, Baxter, I'll come to you first. Give me a prediction. Who finishes on the top step of the podium this race weekend?
Thought you were going to ask me that. I've just been thinking about it. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc.
Oh, modern day Jean Lazy. Let's go. Shez, talk to me from
What
same
are you
question.
talking about?
Mate,
Oh, this discussion needs to happen at some point.
we'll test it.
I'm
No,
just going to sit back and listen.
my thesis is not without holes, but I'll stand by it. Nobody's not going to tell me that dude
Yes,
doesn't
they're holes the size of a black one, my friend.
Nobody, Shez, is going to tell me that dude, just because he was brilliant in Monaco, all of a sudden that does the Men in Black memory eraser thing and all of his
No, but
unforced errors.
It does help my argument.
I want Charles to win purely because my guy Coconut is going to be there, and he's a big Charles Leclerc fan.
Fair
So
play.
Coconut,
nice
that's for
and
you, mate.
altruistic. Go on then, Shez. Same question, mate.
I think if it's dry, I agree. I think Leclerc's got a good shot. If it's wet, listen, I'm gonna throw a wild one at you because I saw what Lewis did in China when it was super wet. Could it be? Could it be the race?
Oh, mate, I might be smug, like the smug that would come from my face if that happened.
This is ultimate
Sod it,
chaos,
I'm gonna
chaps.
put it out there.
Once
Go
bitten,
on.
twice shy when I predicted Lewis in the
Shez.
past. So.
Shez, can I confirm then your pick for top step of the podium? The winner of the Canadian Grand
If it's
Prix
wet,
will be
if it's wet,
who? Give me a name, sir.
Oh mate, if it's dry, I'm gonna go with Charles Leclerc as well.
Go on.
I think,
and if it's wet, say a name.
I'm gonna say Lewis Hamilton.
Unbelievable settings. And on that bombshell, chaps, listen, Maximilian Verstappen, he doesn't tend to make too many mistakes. We got one in Monaco qualifying. I just can't back against that chap. Not in June of 2024. I don't know. I nearly did. I was so tempted to put a cheeky couple of quid on Charles Leclerc at Monaco, but my spidey senses, too ominous, chaps, of late. I'm still shocked that he didn't drop it on pole and do a lights to flag one at Monaco, even with all of the foibles and travails of that RB20 car. Like, I don't know. Imola, Suzuka quality. No, gonna have to go some to beat that chap, even with vehicular troubles. Right, chaps, on that bombshell, you guys have been absolute legends. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favour, if you're watching on the YouTubes, like, comment and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, do me and yourself a favour and hit 5 stars for a review and follow. Go and follow Baxty B on the Twitters at Baxty B. Shezmed, what's the name of the pod? The Tired F1 Podcast on YouTube and all good podcasting platforms. Between now and next time, we'll see you. Enjoy the racing. As always, I digress.